Sleepy buddy, how are you tonight? Take a deep breath and let the day drift quietly behind you. Wherever you're listening from, whatever the time, you found a little corner of calm. Tonight, we're setting off on a soft adventure. Courage, the cowardly dog, will wander beyond nowhere and find himself in the rolling hills of Ooh. Finn and Jake are waiting with warm smiles, Princess Bubblegum is brewing a pot of tea, and Marceline's tune is already brushing the edge of the lake. Settle in, get comfortable, and let the night open its gentle doors. A new story is about to begin. But before it begins, tell me in the comments, where are you watching from and what time is it? And don't forget to subscribe, as every sub showers love on Courage the Cowardly Dog. So let's begin. The night in nowhere was soft. A velvet hush stretched over sand and grass. Courage sat on the farmhouse porch, paws tucked beneath him. A single breeze wandered past, ruffling his ears and carrying the scent of dry clover. Muriel's gentle snore drifted through the open window. Even Eustace was quiet for once, settled deep in his chair. Courage gazed across the empty yard. Above, the sky gleamed with sleepy stars. He liked this kind of night, the world small and steady, every sound familiar. But somewhere beyond the horizon, something faint shimmered. At first he thought it was only starlight, yet it pulsed once, twice, like a slow heartbeat. Curiosity pricked his paws. He rose, stretching each leg carefully, and hopped down to the ground. The breeze grew cooler as he walked, guiding him past the old windmill and into the darker fields. The shimmer strengthened, spilling pale ripples over the grass, as if moonlight had learned how to breathe. Courage paused at the edge of the meadow. The grass swayed gently, silver-tipped, and whispering secrets to the wind. There, in the center, a circle of light quivered above the ground, not frightening, just strange, like a dream half-remembered. Its edges glowed soft blue, fading into lilac, then gold. He stepped closer, nose twitching. Warmth rolled out of the glow, carrying scents of honey and morning dew. The air hummed a note so faint he felt it more than heard it. Courage tilted his head, ears catching the hum. It wasn't a warning. It sounded like an invitation. A cricket's chorus faded, as if giving the night to something new. Courage's paws brushed the grass, each step careful but sure. When he reached the light, it curled around him, calm and steady. He peeked through and gasped a tiny gasp. Beyond was a meadow unlike any he'd seen. Green hills swelling like gentle waves, dotted with little flowers that shone as though stitched from moonbeams. A river winked in the distance, catching silver on its back. For a heartbeat, he hesitated. He looked behind, back toward the porch light glowing faintly in the dark. Then he looked forward to the bright, quiet mystery ahead. The glow widened just a little, as if waiting for his choice. Courage drew a deep, steady breath. One paw, then the other, he stepped through. The ripple folded around him like warm water, cooled its edges, bright at its heart. And with a soft pop, the plain fields of nowhere fell away. He landed on cool grass that felt alive under his paws, springy and sweet-smelling. A breeze tumbled lazily across the hills, bringing scents of apples and sugar. A low hum rolled through the valley, not a threat, just a song of welcome. Courage stood still, letting the land of Ooh breathe around him. And the stars above were different here, larger, softer, scattered across a sky the color of deep sapphire. Far away, he thought he heard a friendly laugh, the kind that belongs to people who like adventures but never hurry to them. Courage's tail twitched. The world felt safe, waiting for him to take another step. The grass beneath Courage's paws was soft, almost springy, and smelled faintly of apples warmed by sunlight. He took a careful step forward, then another, letting the air brush his fur. Around him, the hills rolled in every direction, round and green as if painted by a friendly hand. Fireflies bobbed lazily between flowers, their tiny lights pulsing in slow rhythm. A brook curved through the meadow, water so clear it mirrored the stars. Somewhere nearby, a faint tune floated through the breeze, a hummed melody, low and easy, rising and falling like a swing on a summer afternoon. Courage's ears perked. He crept toward the sound, paused silent against the grass. Each step sent little puffs of dew into the air, sparkling briefly before fading. He reached the edge of a hill and peered over. Below, a campfire glowed warm and steady. Two shapes lounged nearby, one tall and lean, wearing a round hat, the other small and stretching like golden taffy. Their voices drifted upward, calm, cheerful words mixed with occasional laughter. The warmth of it soothed Courage before he even understood the language. He stayed hidden a moment, watching them roast something over the fire. The tall one poked the flames with a stick, while the stretchy one balanced a mug on his belly, humming the tune Courage had followed. The dog swallowed, paws pressing lightly into the earth. Part of him wanted to trot right down and say hello. Another part, the careful part that kept him safe and nowhere, suggested he wait. He sat quietly, letting the night speak first. The breeze shifted, carrying the smell of toasted marshmallows and the faint sweetness of sap. A single ember lifted from the fire, drifting upward like a tiny lantern. It floated near Courage, spiraling gently before fading to ash. He watched it, a small smile tugging at his mouth. Down by the fire, the tall figure looked up toward the hill, sensing movement. He shaded his eyes with one hand and smiled. "Hey, Jake," he said softly. "I think we got a visitor." The golden creature turned, ears stretching like ribbons. His eyes lit with friendly curiosity. "Yeah, I see him," he replied, voice smooth as a lazy river. "Come on down, little dude, we don't bite." Courage froze for a heartbeat, then relaxed at the warmth in their voices. He glanced behind him, just the quiet glow of the portal, shrinking until it was only a memory. Ahead waited a campfire and two strangers who somehow felt like old friends. He stood, shaking the dew from his paws, and padded slowly down the slope. The grass parted softly, letting him through. As he approached, the taller figure held out a hand, palm up in welcome. "Hi there," the boy said, his smile bright but gentle. "Name's Finn. This is Jake. We were just talking about how calm the night is." Jake raised his mug. "And we saved you a spot." Courage stopped at the edge of their firelight, tail flicking once. The warmth from the flames brushed his whiskers, bringing with it the scent of cinnamon and quiet company. He let out a tiny, cautious bark, a hello wrapped in shyness. Finn grinned wider, but not too wide. "Glad you came over," he said. "Have a seat, buddy." Jake patted the grass beside him. "Plenty of room." Courage stepped forward, settling at the edge of the circle. The fire popped softly, sending sparks into the dark. For the first time since leaving nowhere, Courage felt a steady comfort wrap around him, a calm that hinted at new stories waiting to unfold. The fire in the hollow burned low and warm, its light washing the meadow in soft amber. Courage sat just inside the circle of glow, paws tucked neatly, tail curled close. Finn leaned back on one hand, stretching his legs toward the flames. Beside him, Jake lounged in an easy sprawl, the mug balanced again on his rounded belly. For a while, nobody spoke. They simply let the quiet of ooh settle around them, a quiet alive with small sounds. Water sliding over stones in the brook, the faint hum of fireflies, a breeze slipping through the grass. Finn glanced at Courage and offered a gentle smile. "It's not every night we meet someone new out here," he said. "What brought you to the grasslands?" Courage tilted his head, letting out a soft whimper. He pawed at the ground, trying to shape words he didn't have. Jake's ears stretched a little closer, as though catching meaning that didn't need speech. "I think he just followed a feeling," Jake said, voice as smooth as the brook. "Sometimes that's enough." Finn nodded thoughtfully. "Yeah, some of our best quests started with a hunch." The boy picked up a stick and traced lazy lines in the dirt. "You know," he said, "people think adventures are all noise and fighting dragons. But most of them are just moments like this, sitting by a fire, meeting someone you didn't know you needed." Courage's ears twitched at the words. Something about them rang true, the kind of truth that made his chest warm. Jake took a sip from his mug. "There was this one time we helped a baby bear find its mom," he said. "No battles, no running around, just walking slow, keeping it company till it felt safe." Finn grinned. That bear slept the whole way home on Jake's back. Courage gave a little bark, soft, almost like laughter. Jake chuckled. "See? He gets it." The meadow rustled as a breeze passed, carrying the scent of wild mint and warm earth. Above, the stars hung steady, scattered like tiny lanterns. Finn poked at the fire until it gave a sleepy crackle, then looked up again. "Wherever you came from," he said kindly. "You're welcome here. No rush, no worries." Jake nodded. "Yeah, man, just kick back. Let ooh be ooh." Courage felt something loosen inside him, the tight place that always asked, what if whenever he tried something new? Here, under the sky, with these voices, it faded into calm. He edged a little closer to the fire, letting the warmth sink into his fur. Finn and Jake went back to their quiet talk, voices weaving through the sound of water and night insects. Courage rested his head on his paws and listened, content simply to belong. The fire gave a low sigh, embers winking like tiny stars in its heart. Finn rested his chin in his hand, gazing across the flames at Courage. "You know," he said softly, "I used to think bravery was all about charging monsters with my sword. But some of the hardest quests are just learning how to sit still." Jake nodded, stretching an arm lazily until it looped behind Courage in an easy half-hug. "Yeah, man. Sometimes the real test is slowing down enough to listen. Like the time we stayed up with a shy lightning bug so it wouldn't be scared of the dark." Courage's ears perked. He tilted his head, a small sound humming in his throat, part question, part agreement. The warmth of the fire stroked his fur, easing every nervous edge. Finn smiled at him. "Where's home for you, little guy?" he asked gently. Courage pointed a paw back toward the darkness behind the hills, where the shimmer of the portal had been. His eyes softened, remembering Muriel's kitchen light, the creak of the rocking chair, the quiet fields of nowhere. Jake's voice was low and steady. "Sounds like you came from a place that knows quiet." He gave Courage a light nudge. "That means you've got a gift for finding it, even far from home." Finn poked a log, sending a single spark drifting skyward. "Ooh's full of wild stuff," he said. "But it's also full of pockets of peace, little spots where you can sit and just breathe." Courage felt a small pulse of relief inside. He wasn't sure how long he'd stay here, but he knew he could. This land, strange as it was, spoke the same language as his heart when it wanted rest. Above them, the sky was a wide bowl of stars. Some pulsed faintly, as though applauding the quiet. Others shone steady, a reminder that calm can hold space for adventure, too. Jake leaned back, letting the grass cradle him. "Tomorrow we'll take you to meet more friends," he said, voice already trailing toward drowsy. But for now, this is enough. Finn nodded, eyes reflecting the firelight. Yeah. Tonight we've got everything we need: good company, soft ground, and stories that don't rush. Courage curled a little closer to the flames, letting their warmth sink into him like a promise. His eyelids dipped, then lifted, catching the stars one more time before he sighed and relaxed against the grass. The night hummed a tune of stillness, and the little trio let it wrap around them, content to drift wherever gentle adventures might lead next. The flames had settled into a nest of quiet coals, their glow steady and low. Above, the stars gathered thickly, as though leaning closer to listen. The air was cool but gentle, scented with mint and warm grass. Finn stretched his legs, folding them under him again. "Want to hear something funny?" he asked, eyes glinting in the firelight. "Once Jake and I went looking for a missing hat. Turned out it was hiding in a tree stump the whole time. We spent hours chasing shadows, only to find it right where we'd started." Jake chuckled, stretching until his ears brushed the ground. "Best nap of my life, though," he said. "Sometimes an adventure is just a walk that teaches you how good it feels to sit back down." Courage let out a small, pleased growl, eyes half closed. The tail fit snugly in his chest, like a pebble that had always been part of his pocket. Bubbles of laughter rippled between the two friends before quiet returned. Finn poked the coals once more, sending up a single thread of smoke. He glanced toward the hills where moonlight skimmed their edges. "That portal you came through," he said. "Must have known you needed a place to rest." Jake nodded. "Worlds have a way of doing that for folks who listen." Courage tilted his head, thinking of Muriel's calm voice, of the quiet corners of the farmhouse. He felt a small tug of homesickness, but it was light softened by the safety of this new meadow. Finn smiled kindly. "If you ever get worried, remember this night," he said. "Even heroes need stillness." Jake raised his mug in a lazy salute. "To small dogs and big nights," he toasted, and Courage gave a tiny bark, as if clinking an invisible cup. The breeze swept around them, stirring the grass in soft waves. Fireflies wandered closer, blinking slow greetings before drifting off again. The whole valley seemed to settle, a sigh that reached even the far edges of ooh. Finn leaned back, his hat slipping over one eye. "Tomorrow's got its own stories," he said, voice sliding toward drowsy. "But for tonight, this one's enough." Jake lay fully down, curling his long body into a comfortable loop. Courage nestled beside him, finding a pocket of warmth near Jake's side. Finn stretched an arm across them both, tucking the trio into a quiet pile. The meadow, the stars, the faint smell of apples, everything folded together into a single blanket of calm. Courage let his eyes close halfway, holding on to the feeling of company and quiet before drifting deeper. The campfire had melted to a soft glow, a circle of orange cradled by ash. Beyond it, the grassland stretched calm and silver, dew gathering on each blade like tiny beads of moonlight. A breeze drifted through, carrying the scent of apples and mint, smoothing over every crease in the night. Finn adjusted his hat and lay back fully, hands behind his head. "That's the thing about adventures," he said softly. "The best ones end with quiet." His voice was already half asleep. Jake gave a low hum, eyes closed but smiling. "Yeah, man," he murmured. "Quiet's the secret part." His body stretched just enough to curl protectively around Courage, then relaxed again. Courage settled against Jake's warm fur, paws tucked close to his chest. The little dog sighed, letting the last tension of the day seep away. He looked once more at the hills, their shapes gentle against the sky, and felt a peaceful certainty. He belonged right here, in this stillness. The stars above shone steady, silver dots sewn into a dark quilt. They seemed to lean closer, whispering wordless promises that tomorrow would come kindly, that friends would be waiting, that even in strange places, safety could be found. Finn's breathing slowed, blending with Jake's steady rhythm. Courage let his eyelids drift shut, ears twitching once before becoming still. The night wrapped them in a calm deeper than words, a space where dreams could arrive without hurry. The grass shifted slightly, rocking them like a cradle. From somewhere over the ridge, an owl called once, low and soothing, then flew on in silence. All around, Ooh kept its vigil, the brook humming softly, the fire sighing its last, the stars steady as heartbeat lights. Courage released a final contented breath, tail brushing Jake's side, and surrendered to sleep. For a moment everything was perfectly still, three friends in a valley at rest, held by the quiet courage that comes when the day is done. Evening had begun to lean across the hills of Ooh, painting the grasslands with long violet shadows. Courage padded beside Finn and Jake, their steps unhurried as they followed the curve of a brook. The air smelled of warm apples and moss after sun. Ahead a small clearing waited, ringed by fireflies. Finn crouched to set a kettle over a fresh campfire while Jake stretched lazily, collecting smooth stones to circle the flames. The kettle gave a cheerful clink as it settled onto the logs. "Nothing beats tea at twilight," Finn said, tipping a wink at Courage. "You sip slow, and the stories come out on their own." Jake poured water from a round canteen, his voice steady and warm. "Yeah, buddy. Tales taste better when the night's just waking up." Courage sniffed the steam, then sat near Jake's long tail, letting the heat kiss his fur. Fireflies floated overhead like drifting lanterns. Finn rummaged in his pack, bringing out 3 mugs and a small pouch of tea leaves. "Picked these near the treehouse," he explained. "Smell that? Sweet with a little mint?" Jake inhaled, eyes half closed. Peaceful. As the tea steeped, the trio settled into a slow rhythm. Crackle of wood, soft splash from the brook, a sigh of breeze running over the hills. Finn glanced at Courage with an easy smile. "After tea," he said, "I've got a story about a quest that turned out kinder than expected." Jake grinned. "Oh, tell the marshmallow giant one." Finn laughed quietly. "Maybe. Or the treasure hunt that ended with us building a library instead of taking the loot." Courage tilted his head, tail giving a shy wag. The smell of tea mingled with wood smoke, wrapping the clearing in calm. Night began to gather above, stars blooming against a violet sky. The first sip of tea was smooth and sweet, settling warmth in their bellies. Courage felt a hush move through him, deeper than words, the kind that promises a safe, steady night. The sky above their camp turned a richer shade of blue, dotted with the first patient stars. The fire sighed and shifted, sending a faint ribbon of smoke toward the brook. Courage curled against Jake's warm side, ears flicking at the small sounds of night. Finn cradled his mug, eyes reflecting the flames. "Okay," he said softly. "This one's about the marshmallow giant. People thought he was a menace, stealing treats from bakeries, scaring folks in the Candy Kingdom." He paused, smile curling. "But turns out, he just couldn't stop wandering at night, looking for someone to share cocoa with." Jake stretched, using his tail to poke a log back into the coals. "Big old gooey fella," he said. "We found him stuck in a candy cane fence, humming to himself." Finn nodded, sipping his tea. "He was shy, not mean, just lonely." He traced circles in the dirt with a stick. "We stayed with him till sunrise, roasting marshmallows over his own gooey hands. Taught him how to wave without knocking things over. Courage let out a quiet, pleased sound, tail sweeping the grass. He understood. Sometimes fear is just someone waiting for company. Jake leaned closer, voice easy. The guy became the official marshmallow toaster of the Candy Kingdom. Folks line up every full moon to sit by his fire. Finn grinned. See, not every quest ends with a fight. Some end with cocoa and new friends. The tea kettle gave a soft hiss, and Finn refilled their mugs. Steam drifted into the cool air, carrying a sweet scent. Around them, the clearing felt stitched together warm fire, gentle voices, the hush of water nearby. Finn glanced at Courage. "Your turn to hear stories, buddy," he said kindly. "Or just sit and soak them in. Both are good." Courage rested his head on his paws, eyes heavy but bright. The soft glow of the flames painted the meadow gold, while above the stars drew slow constellations no one hurried to name. The brook's low song joined the rhythm of their voices, weaving calm into every breath. Even the windmill on a distant hill seemed to pause and listen, its blades resting against the starlit sky. The fire had grown lower, its embers glowing like sleepy eyes beneath a soft veil of ash. Above, the sky was velvet dark now, each star a steady point of light. Courage shifted closer to the warmth, ears twitching at the gentle hiss of the kettle. Jake tilted his head back, looking at the stars through half-lidded eyes. "Okay," he said in his slow, mellow voice. "My turn. This one's about a quest so quiet. We almost forgot it was a quest." Finn grinned, settling in with his mug. "Oh, the lost seed story?" "Yeah," Jake chuckled. "We were supposed to find a legendary seed for a wizard's garden. Everyone thought it'd be buried under a mountain, guarded by trolls." He shook his head lazily. Turns out it was just floating along the river of dandelions, waiting for somebody to notice. Courage's ears perked. He tilted his head, a small sound rising from his throat, and the kind that asked for more without a single word. Jake smiled at him. "We spent the whole day following that seed. Every time the wind caught it, we thought we'd lose it. But the breeze was friendly, kept setting it down just far enough for us to catch up." Finn nodded. "That breeze taught us patience. We learned to walk slow, talk soft, and watch how sunlight turns a drifting thing into treasure." Courage's eyes widened as he pictured the seed bobbing on the river, the way his own paws sometimes chased a feather across the yard at home. He gave a quiet, pleased bark. Jake stretched one arm behind Courage, patting the little dog's back. "That seed didn't end up in any fancy garden," he said. "It grew right where it landed, a tiny tree with yellow blossoms, perfect for napping under." Finn chuckled. "We still visit it sometimes. It's not magic, not treasure, just shade and a breeze that remembers us." The fire popped gently, sending up a few orange sparks. Around them, the meadow breathed in time with their words, grass swaying like a slow tide. The tea's warmth spread through their bellies, making even the cool air feel like a blanket. Courage rested his chin on Jake's arm, eyelids dipping. The voices, the crackle of firewood, the smell of mint and honey, everything layered together into a calm deeper than the night. The meadow was wrapped in silver moonlight now, soft as a quilt. Fireflies had settled among the flowers, their glow steady and low. The fire hissed gently, a cradle of warmth in the cool night. Finn leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. "All right, Courage," he said kindly. "You've been hearing our stories all night. Got any of your own you'd like to share?" Courage blinked, surprised by the invitation. He pawed at the grass, unsure, then lifted his gaze to the two friends. Jake gave him an encouraging nod, his long tail brushing Courage's back in a calm pat. "You don't have to use words," Jake said, voice smooth and warm. "Stories Can be little sounds or pictures in your head, just whatever feels right. Courage let out a soft, wavering whimper, a shy melody that rose and fell. He added a low growl, then a quiet sigh, weaving them together. The sounds told of nights by Muriel's chair, of standing guard while shadows crept outside, of trembling but staying anyway because someone needed him. Finn's smile softened. "That's brave stuff, man," he said, steady and sincere. "Not every hero swings a sword." Jake reached for another stick, tossing it lightly onto the coals. "Yeah, buddy. Holding your ground even when you're scared, that's top-shelf courage." Courage made one last little yip, then lowered his head, ears tipping back as if shy of all the attention. But the warmth in their eyes settled him. For the first time since stepping through the portal, his chest felt clear, like a sky after rain. Finn poured a bit more tea into Courage's bowl, sliding it toward him. "For telling your tale," he said. "Every storyteller deserves a refill." The brook hummed softly nearby, threading its tune through the quiet clearing. The hills stood patient, their shapes smooth under moonlight. Courage lapped at the tea, tasting mint and calm. Jake yawned, stretching until his paws touched either side of the fire. "Feels like tonight's giving us a lesson," he murmured. "Quests don't always need maps. Sometimes they're just chances to sit together and trade heartbeats." Finn nodded, eyes half-lidded. "That's my favorite kind," he said. The three of them sat close, letting the words settle like embers in the fire pit, glowing steady, warming everything they touched. The fire had settled into a quiet nest of embers, glowing low against the dark. Moonlight spread across the meadow, silvering the edges of every blade of grass. Courage curled near Jake's side, the warmth of friends and the hush of the brook wrapping around him like a second blanket. Finn sipped the last of his tea, then set the mug down on a flat stone. "I've got one more story," he said softly. "Not about quests or treasure, just a moment." He paused, eyes reflecting the soft firelight. "Once I sat with a little turtle who couldn't find his way back to the pond. We didn't rush. We just walked slow until we got there. He slid into the water like it was the safest place on earth." Jake grinned, stretching lazily. "That turtle sent us postcards for months," he said. "Little tiny ones, written with mud." Courage let out a small, pleased growl as if laughing. His eyes drooped, half caught between wakefulness and the tug of dreams. Jake took a turn next, his voice even gentler. "I remember helping a tree that had grown lopsided. Folks thought it was doomed, but Finn and I propped it up with a branch and sang while we worked. Years later, we passed by again. That tree was strong, giving shade to every traveler." Finn nodded, gaze distant but calm. "Things grow better with patience," he said, "and with someone nearby who believes they can." The clearing went quiet again, only the brook murmuring and the wind brushing through leaves. Fireflies drifted closer, their lights winking like tiny approval. Courage raised his head and looked between them. A flicker of understanding moved in his eyes. Bravery didn't have to be grand, and kindness didn't have to shout. Both could be as simple as staying beside someone until the worry went away. Jake reached over, letting his paw rest lightly on Courage's back. "You fit right into nights like this," he said, "even if you came from way out past the portal." Finn leaned closer, brushing an ember away from the grass. "Yeah," he added. "Some friends you meet quick, like they were waiting all along." The tea kettle gave a final hiss, a sleepy farewell. The trio sat in the soft dark, their words fading into the same quiet as the hills and the stars above. The fire dwindled to a low circle of red, its last wisps of smoke rising like sleepy sighs. Around it, the meadow breathed in silence, scented with mint, warm soil, and the sweetness of cooling tea. Finn pulled his hat low over his eyes and leaned back on his pack. "That's the thing about nights like this," he murmured. "They don't need anything more." Jake stretched until his long body wrapped partway around the fire pit, forming a comfortable curve. He rested his head near Courage, eyes half closed. "Tomorrow's for new stuff," he said, voice already heavy with drowsiness. "Right now's for snoozing." Courage yawned, a tiny sound, and tucked himself against Jake's warm side. The nervous flutter that often lived in his chest was gone, replaced by something steady, like the heartbeat of the hills themselves. Above, ooze sky shimmered wide and bright. Stars gathered close, steady as lanterns, and a silver moon floated just above the treetops, casting a hush over the clearing. Fireflies drifted lazily, their lights dimming as if preparing for sleep. Finn shifted to get comfortable, letting one hand rest lightly on Courage's back. "You did great today, little buddy," he whispered. "Sometimes the bravest thing is just showing up." Jake gave a sleepy chuckle. "And sometimes," he said, "it's drinking all the tea without spilling on your paws." Courage wagged his tail once, then let his eyes close, safe between laughter and calm. The brook whispered nearby, its song a slow lullaby, threading through grass and shadow. The trio settled together, letting the meadow's stillness cradle them. Even the wind seemed to pause, carrying only a soft promise that tomorrow would bring gentle stories waiting just beyond sunrise. One by one they drifted into sleep, Finn's breath slow and even, Jake's a quiet rumble, and Courage's a tiny sigh of contentment. Above, the stars kept watch, steady as a heartbeat, holding their dreams in place until morning. The night in Oo was clear and sweet, a breeze gliding over the grasslands like a quiet song. Courage padded alongside Finn and Jake, following a trail of tiny lanterns that glowed pink and gold. Each light bobbed gently, casting soft halos onto the grass. Ahead, a delicate arch of spun sugar marked the entrance to a narrow lane. Beyond it lay a faint blush of color against the dark, the edge of the Candy Kingdom. The walls shimmered, catching the moonlight, and somewhere deeper inside, soft laughter drifted over the rooftops. "Princess Bubblegum's setting up a midnight picnic," Finn explained, his voice low so it wouldn't break the spell of the night. "She likes to invite friends when the air's cool and the stars are bright." Jake stretched a little longer, tail brushing the lanterns as he passed. "And she makes the best cocoa," he added with a sleepy grin. Courage's ears twitched at the scents riding the breeze, hints of caramel, mint, and a sweetness he couldn't name. He followed quietly, paws sinking into grass so soft it felt like velvet. The lanterns curved around a bend, leading them toward a clearing just inside the Candy Kingdom's walls. There, Princess Bubblegum waited. She knelt beside a low table draped with cloth as pale as moonlight, its corners held in place by polished sugar stones. Around her, cushions were scattered like pastel clouds, and plates of tiny cakes gleamed softly under starlight. When she saw them, Bubblegum's face brightened with a calm smile. "Perfect timing," she said. Her voice carried the steadiness of someone who knew how to make nights gentle. "Come sit. There's room for everyone." Finn helped Courage onto one of the cushions, while Jake curled up on another, stretching until he fit. The princess poured warm cocoa into small cups, steam curling like pink ribbons into the air. Courage sniffed the drink, then took a cautious lick. A smooth sweetness spread across his tongue, leaving a warmth that reached all the way to his paws. Above them, stars shone in delicate clusters. The Candy Kingdom, beyond the trees, twinkled softly, its towers and rooftops bathed in silver. The air smelled faintly of berries and cool sugar. Bubblegum set a plate of tiny cakes in the middle of the table. "Tonight," she said gently, "isn't about work or planning. It's just for stories, a few laughs, and letting the quiet help us breathe." Courage relaxed against his cushion. The table's glow, the calm voices, the scent of cocoa, everything whispered that this midnight gathering was a safe place to rest. The cocoa sent little curls of steam into the cool air, carrying a faint scent of vanilla and berries. Princess Bubblegum cradled her cup, the moonlight tracing soft lines across her face. Around the table, everyone had found a spot. Finn leaning back on his elbows, Jake stretched across two cushions, and Courage tucked against a pink pillow that smelled faintly of sugar cane. For a while, no one hurried to speak. The only sounds were the quiet nibble of cakes and the faint buzz of fireflies drifting between the trees. Then Bubblegum smiled, a gentle curve that seemed to steady the whole clearing. "I have a story for nights like this," she said. Her voice was calm, measured, as though meant for soft ears. "Once, long ago, I planted a little patch of peppermint on a hill behind the castle. I wanted something sweet to surprise the royal bees." She paused, letting the breeze ruffle the edge of the tablecloth. "I thought it would grow fast, but the shoots were shy, so every evening I'd sit by the soil and read them letters from my old notebooks. I told them about the people I cared for and the friends who made the kingdom kind. I think they liked the sound of company." Finn grinned. "That's so you, PB. Even your plants get bedtime stories." Bubblegum laughed softly, a sound light as spun sugar. "Maybe. But one night, after I'd read to them for weeks, I found the hill covered in peppermint blooms. The bees danced all through the night. And I learned that patience and gentleness can coax even the smallest roots to rise." Courage's ears twitched. He gave a quiet whine, the kind that meant, "I understand." Jake reached over, patting him with a long, easy paw. "See, little dude? Even candy plants like a steady friend." The princess refilled their cups, her movements unhurried. "That's what I hoped tonight could be," she said, looking around the table. "A patch of calm in a busy world." The breeze shifted, carrying the soft scent of peppermint from somewhere beyond the trees, as if the hill she spoke of was nodding along. Fireflies floated lower, their lights catching on Courage's fur like tiny stars. Finn leaned forward, chin resting on his palm. "That's a good start for a midnight picnic," he said warmly. "Sweet story. Sweet tea." Jake grinned, stretching until his tail flicked a passing firefly. "All right, Courage," he said with a wink. "Your turn's coming soon." Courage ducked his head shyly, but the warmth in their faces told him there was nothing to fear. He licked a bit of cocoa from his whiskers, tail giving a tentative wag as the night opened its calm pages wider. The moon had climbed higher, scattering silver light across the Candy Kingdom's treetops. The clearing glowed in soft pink and blue, the lanterns flickering lazily above the picnic table. Courage nestled deeper into his cushion, cocoa warm in his belly, ears tuned to the soft voices around him. Finn set his mug down, eyes thoughtful. "I've got one," he said, his voice as steady as the fireflies drifting nearby. "A while back, Jake and I helped build a bridge for a tiny village of gumdrop folks. Their path to the berry fields got washed away in the spring rains." Jake nodded, smiling at the memory. "Those little guys were sweet, but super shy," he added. "Wouldn't even peek out of their doors at first." Finn chuckled softly. "Yeah, they thought we were there to make a big fuss. But we kept it slow. Instead of rushing, we lit lanterns along the riverbank so they could watch from their windows while we worked. By the time the last lantern was set, they'd all come out to help." Bubblegum rested her chin on one hand, her eyes warm. "I remember that," she said. They sent me a letter saying the bridge felt like it had been built out of kindness. Courage wagged his tail once, a soft sweep against the grass. He could almost picture the glow of lanterns lining a calm river, reflections rippling gently as new friends found courage of their own. Finn leaned closer to the group, elbows on the table. That night taught me something. Bravery isn't always loud. Sometimes it's giving people a safe space to join in. Jake sipped from his cup and let out a long, easy sigh. And then we all ate berry pie till we couldn't move, he said, laughter low and relaxed. Courage let out a tiny bark, half giggle, half sigh, and licked a crumb of cake from his paw. The picnic felt less like a meal and more like a small, glowing promise that good company could make even shy hearts shine. Bubblegum poured another round of cocoa, her hands steady as moonlight. I'm glad you both kept those lanterns lit, she said softly. That kind of patience is its own magic. Around them, the night hummed quietly. Bees resting in distant hives, the brook threading music through the grass, stars holding their steady light. The clearing felt like a bowl filled with warmth, and every voice inside was a thread weaving safety into its rim. Courage sighed, stretching his paws. He didn't need to speak. The look on his face said he understood perfectly. The cocoa was nearly gone from their cups, leaving sweet traces along the rims. Fireflies drifted lazily in the warm air, their lights blinking like tiny, patient hearts. Courage stretched on his cushion, then settled again, head resting against his paws. Jake swirled what remained in his mug, a grin tugging at the corners of his mouth. Okay, he said, voice mellow as honey. Here's one from a few summers back. PB, you might remember. Bubblegum raised an eyebrow, smiling. Should I be worried? Jake chuckled. Nah, this one's all soft edges. He leaned comfortably against a cushion and began. There was a candy fair outside the castle music. Soft lights, piles of cotton fluff as far as you could see. But a little lollipop kid got separated from his friends. He sat near the taffy stall, all knotted up inside. Finn nodded. I remember that night. You made a hammock out of your own arm. Jake laughed quietly, the sound sliding into the easy rhythm of the meadow. Yeah, I stretched into a swing so the kid could rock while we searched. Took hours, but we found his pals. They were waiting by the caramel fountain, worried sick. Courage gave a soft, sympathetic whine, ears folding forward. Jake reached out and gave him a gentle pat. Sometimes, he said, the smallest comfort makes the biggest night better. Bubblegum's eyes softened. That little one still writes me notes on candy wrappers, she said. He calls you the hammock hero. Jake's grin widened, though his voice stayed calm. See, buddy, he said to Courage, you don't have to be huge or loud to help someone out. Just be there steady, like a porch light. The breeze teased the edge of the tablecloth, lifting it and letting it settle again. Beyond the clearing, the Candy Kingdom slept under a silver sky. Even the castle towers looked drowsy, their colors softened by moonlight. Finn leaned back, folding his hands behind his head. Nights like this, he said, make me think that even adventures need quiet corners. Courage lifted his head, meeting Finn's gaze with a shy wag. He felt the truth of it settle deep inside, warm as the cocoa lingering on his tongue. Bubblegum placed a new plate of cakes on the table, their sugary scent drifting through the clearing. Let's enjoy these while the stars stay bright, she said gently. No rush, there's plenty of night left. They each reached for a cake, savoring the sweetness and the soft company. The meadow seemed to lean closer, as if tucking their laughter safely between the trees. The clearing had grown even softer, as if the whole Candy Kingdom were holding its breath around them. Only the brook spoke, humming a slow tune beyond the trees. Fireflies hovered lower now, their little lights painting dots of gold across the tablecloth. Princess Bubblegum folded her hands in her lap and looked toward Courage with a quiet smile. "You've heard so many of our stories tonight," she said. "Would you like to tell us one of yours? It doesn't have to be big, just something you carry close." Courage blinked, paws shifting on the cushion. For a heartbeat, he hesitated. Then he raised his head, eyes warm with the reflection of moonlight. A tiny whimper left his throat, followed by a faint growl, then a long, soft sigh. Finn leaned forward, listening, as if Courage's sounds were clear words. "He's talking about home," he said gently. "About someone who always made him feel safe." Jake nodded, tail giving an approving twitch. "Yeah, I hear that too. Sounds like a story of keeping watch." Encouraged, Courage added another little bark, higher and lighter, like the flick of a candle flame. The friends watched patiently, letting him finish. Bubblegum reached out, her hand still and calm. "That's a brave memory," she murmured. "It takes heart to share the quiet things." She slid a small tart toward him, its surface dusted with sugar. "For your story." Courage sniffed the treat, then licked at it shyly before nibbling. Warm sweetness spread across his tongue, mingling with the warmth of being understood. Finn smiled, resting an elbow on the table. "That's what picnics like this are for, letting the soft parts of us breathe." Jake stretched and yawned, his voice a rumbling whisper. "Guess it's official, little dude. You're part of the late-night picnic crew." Courage's tail wagged once, slow and sure. The stars above gleamed brighter, as if pleased with his courage to speak. Bubblegum refilled their cups with the last of the cocoa, moving with unhurried grace. "Let's keep this moment," she said quietly. "When mornings get busy, we'll remember how still the world felt tonight." They raised their mugs, or in Courage's case, his little bowl for a soft clink, sealing the memory. The clearing glowed around them, peaceful and steady, holding their words like treasures. The last of the cocoa sent a faint ribbon of steam into the air before cooling. The fireflies had grown drowsy, their glow fading to soft dots among the grass. Overhead, the stars stretched bright and steady, like pearls stitched into a quilt of midnight. Princess Bubblegum gathered the empty cups, stacking them neatly at one edge of the cloth. "I love nights like this," she said, voice warm and low. "They remind me that even in a busy kingdom, there's always room for calm." Finn leaned back against the pillow, hands laced behind his head. "Yeah," he said, smiling at the sky. "Sometimes the best adventures staying put." Jake curled deeper into his cushion, a relaxed rumble drifting from his chest. "And having snacks," he added with a grin. Courage tucked himself a little closer to Jake's side, eyes half shut. The warmth of the picnic cakes on cocoa, steady voices wrapped him like a blanket. He felt the steady hum of safety, a heartbeat hidden inside the night. Bubblegum folded the tablecloth with a slow care, placing it atop the plate of leftover treats. "These will keep," she said. "Tomorrow they'll still taste like friendship." Finn reached over to scratch behind Courage's ear. "Thanks for sharing tonight," he said softly. "You make every place feel a little braver." Jake yawned wide enough to make the fireflies wobble, then rested his long head beside Courage. "Time to snooze, crew," he murmured. They stayed a moment longer, just breathing together while the brook whispered nearby. The towers of the Candy Kingdom glimmered faintly through the trees, like sleepy guardians keeping watch. One by one they settled. Finn stretched out on a patch of moss, Jake curling protectively around Courage, Bubblegum leaning comfortably against a tree trunk. Above them, the stars held their quiet vigil. Courage let out a tiny sigh, tail brushing Jake's side. His eyelids fluttered shut, heavy with contentment. Around him, the clearing kept its gentle hush, a promise that kindness, once found, lingers even as sleep arrives. The breeze carried a last hint of peppermint and sugar before stilling. The midnight picnic had become a memory, resting safely in the night air, waiting for them to wake with calm hearts. The clearing where they'd shared cocoa was quiet now, only the faint scent of peppermint and warm sugar lingering in the breeze. Courage stirred against Jake's side, blinking drowsily as the stars kept their silver watch above the Candy Kingdom. Beyond the trees, a soft strum rolled across the night low notes, warm and a little wistful, as though the moon had found a voice. Finn lifted his head, listening. "That's Marcelin," he murmured, smiling. "She's down by the lake." Bubblegum looked up from the folded tablecloth, her expression fond. She must have felt the stillness tonight and decided to play. Jake stretched, his long body arching into the cool air. "Lake Jam?" he said, voice husky with half-sleep. "I'm in." Courage pricked his ears. The sound was unlike anything he'd heard, part lullaby, part breeze over water. It drifted through the branches, inviting without words. They rose slowly, gathering the leftover cakes and wrapping them in the tablecloth. Bubblegum tucked them neatly under her arm while Finn slung his pack across his shoulder. Together they followed the melody, letting it lead them down a narrow path lined with candy-colored reeds. Moonlight widened ahead, silvering the edges of a small lake. The surface was perfectly calm, reflecting the stars and the faint glow of distant towers. On a rock near the shore sat Marceline, her bass cradled across her knees. She strummed a lazy chord, letting the sound ripple over the water. She glanced up as they approached, her smile soft and unhurried. "Hey, you made it," she said, voice low enough not to disturb the lake's hush. "Figured the night could use a little music." Bubblegum settled onto a smooth patch of grass, setting the bundle of cakes beside her. Finn sat cross-legged, and Jake stretched long enough to dip a paw into the cool shallows. Courage eased down at Bubblegum's feet, eyes fixed on the strings that shimmered in Marceline's hands. The vampire queen let another note glide outward, slow and steady. "No big show tonight," she said. "Just a tune for friends and for anyone who wandered in from far away." She winked at Courage. The dog's tail thumped softly against the ground. The lake mirrored every sound, Marceline's chords, the breeze through the reeds, even Courage's quiet breath. Above them, the moon floated higher, casting a silver path across the still water. Marceline leaned back, letting her fingers drift into another melody, gentle, unhurried, a song made of ripples and stars. The group relaxed, letting the music settle around them like an extra blanket. The moon climbed higher, laying a silver ladder across the lake. Marceline's fingers slid over the bass strings, coaxing out notes so soft they barely stirred the water. Each sound floated outward in rings, meeting the reeds with a hush. Finn leaned back on his elbows, watching the ripples widen and fade. "That song's got a map in it," he said quietly, "like it's showing the way to calm." Jake lowered his long chin to the shore, eyes half closed. "Feels like the lake's breathing," he murmured. "In, out, real easy." Courage crept a little closer, paws silent on the grass. He sat at Marceline's boots, ears tipped forward, tail curled around himself. Her music made his heart settle, no sharp beats, just a steady hush. Marceline glanced at him, smiling without breaking the rhythm. "This one's an old tune," she said softly. "Picked it up after a long walk by myself. Nights can get quiet, but sometimes they're just waiting for a melody to remind them they're not alone." Bubblegum unwrapped the bundle of cakes, Placing a few between them all, she spoke in a low voice, careful not to disturb the song. "Even lakes like to be sung to," she said with a grin. Marceline let a new chord roll from her fingers, deeper this time, almost like a heartbeat under the stars. "That's the thing about music," she said, her voice carrying a faint smile. "You don't have to explain it. You just let it stay, like moonlight." Courage sighed, resting his chin on his paws. The lake seemed to answer him with a glimmer, as if the water understood the language of small, quiet dogs. Finn reached for cake, then offered a bite to Courage. "Here," he whispered, "for being brave enough to sit close to a song." Courage nibbled gently, crumbs soft on his tongue. Marceline's voice joined the bass in a gentle hum, a thread of melody winding through the cool air. The reeds bent slightly, as though bowing to the music. Around them, the world slowed to match the rhythm. Even the stars above seemed to blink in time with each note, their light patient and warm. Marceline closed her eyes, letting the next phrase float free. It was a song of quiet company, of wandering and finding, of how the night keeps space for every small soul. Marceline's fingers slid across the strings, coaxing a lower, warmer tone. The sound rippled over the lake, soft as cloth laid across still water. Moonlight followed each note, laying silver threads between shore and stars. She opened her eyes halfway, gaze drifting over her friends before settling on the horizon. "This song," she said quietly, "came from a night when I felt small. I was flying above these hills, looking for somewhere to land. Everything felt too far away until I found a lake just like this one." Finn shifted closer, listening intently. Jake rested his chin on his paws, tail flicking a slow rhythm. Bubblegum folded her hands on her knees, a faint smile warming her face. "I sat down with my bass," Marceline went on, "and played until the sky changed color. By morning, I wasn't so lonely anymore. I think the lake was keeping me company." She plucked another note, letting it hang in the air before drifting outward. Courage lifted his head, ears twitching. He understood that feeling. Nights when the world felt bigger than he could hold, when all he wanted was a steady sound to guide him home. He crept a little nearer, resting his small paw on the rock beside Marceline's boot. She gave him a gentle nod, fingers never leaving the strings. "Yeah," she murmured. "You get it." The bass line swelled, joined by her voice low and even, more like a whisper than a song. She sang of soft grass and moonlit paths, of friends waiting beyond shadows, of how stillness can be a hand you don't see but always feel. Jake's ears drooped as he listened, eyes closing in contentment. Finn leaned against Bubblegum's shoulder, letting the words settle inside him like stones at the bottom of clear water. Courage's tail made a single, slow sweep across the ground. The lake caught Marceline's song and sent it back in silver ripples, stretching far across the quiet. When the last line faded, there was no need to speak right away. The hush that followed was part of the song, a pause wide enough to hold every heart gathered by the shore. The lake gleamed like a polished stone, holding the last notes of Marceline's song. A breeze skimmed its surface, scattering faint rings of silver toward the reeds. Finn drew in a quiet breath. "That was, something," he said, voice hushed as if he might wake the water. "It felt like the kind of story you don't just hear, you stand inside it." Jake gave a lazy stretch, paws playing on the grass. "Yeah, man," he murmured. "Your tune's like a hammock strung between stars." Marceline chuckled softly, her bass still resting across her knees. "Guess I just wanted the night to know it's okay to slow down." Bubblegum reached out, letting her fingers trail lightly along the strings. It's more than slowing down, she said. It reminds you there's room for everyone at the edge of the lake. Courage glanced up at her, then at Marceline. He let out a small whimper, a question wrapped in warmth. Marceline bent to scratch behind his ears. Yeah, pup, she said gently. Songs can be places. Sometimes they're the safest places you'll find. The moon lifted a little higher, its reflection bright on the water. Fireflies circled lazily, their lights dotting the shadows. Jake took a sip from a mug bubblegum had refilled, savoring the warmth before sighing happily. Finn leaned back on his elbows, head tilted toward the stars. When you sing like that, it makes everything feel bigger and smaller at once, he said. Like the whole world can fit in a single note. Courage let out a quiet bark, tail brushing the grass. He pressed closer to Marceline's boots, comforted by the softness in everyone's voices. Bubblegum laid a cake on a napkin and pushed it toward the dog. Even music tastes better with snacks, she teased, though her voice stayed gentle. The group shared an easy laugh, low and calm, letting it roll out across the shoreline. The lake answered with a small ripple, as if to approve. Above, the stars grew sharper, steady points in a sky that kept widening without losing its peace. Around the friends, everything held stillness, not empty, but full of quiet kindness waiting to be noticed. The water lay calm, a mirror for moon and stars. Marceline tapped the bass softly, coaxing a few sleepy notes. Hey, little guy, she said, looking at Courage with a warm grin. Want to try a sound? Doesn't have to be fancy, just whatever lives in your heart. Courage's ears flicked forward. He hesitated, paw shifting against the grass, then leaned closer to the rock where Marceline sat. A shy whimper slipped out, then another, stitched with a small hum only he could make. Finn's face brightened. That's it, he said quietly. You've got your own lullaby. Jake wagged his tail, a slow sweep across the moss. Yeah, buddy. That's the kind of tune lakes like, best soft and brave. Marceline nodded, fingers drifting over her strings, matching his hesitant rhythm. Perfect, she whispered. Music doesn't have to be loud to count. Sometimes the quiet songs are the ones people remember. Bubblegum leaned against a tree, smiling as she watched the two of them weave notes together. I think the lake likes this duet, she said, glancing at the surface. Indeed, small rings of silver spread outward from where the moon's reflection sat, like applause too gentle to make a sound. Courage gained confidence, letting out a longer hum. It wavered, but Marceline played along, wrapping his sound in a soft halo of chords. The water caught each note, stretching them into long ribbons that drifted toward the far bank. Finn sighed happily, folding his arms behind his head. This might be the calmest adventure we've ever had. Jake chuckled low in his chest. Calm's underrated, man. People don't realize how much strength it takes. Courage ended with a little bark light, like a period at the end of a sentence. Marceline gave him a mock bow, the tip of her bass touching the grass. Nice work, partner. He wagged his tail once, settling back down with a satisfied breath. The group sat together, letting the new hush settle in. The lake shimmered faintly, holding their music the way it held moonlight. The lake had grown perfectly still, as if listening for one last note. Marceline rested her bass across her lap, hands relaxed on the strings. That's enough music for tonight, she said softly, voice blending with the hush of reeds. Now we just let the calm stay. Bubblegum arranged the leftover cakes in their cloth, folding the edges with steady fingers. This was a good idea, she murmured. A lullaby for everyone, even the lake. Finn lay back on the grass, hat tipped over one eye. Best kind of quest, he said, a smile hidden in his voice. Starts with a song, ends with sleep. Jake stretched until his paws skimmed the cool water. then coiled himself into a gentle curve. "I vote we camp right here," he said, settling with a quiet rumble. Courage shifted closer to Marceline, curling into the space between her boots and Jake's side. The moon traced a line across his back, silver and soft. He gave a tiny sigh, the sound of a heart deciding it was safe. Marceline leaned down, scratching lightly behind his ears. "You've got a good voice, little guy," she whispered. "Thanks for sharing it." The friends settled as one, Finn folding his arms under his head, Bubblegum resting against the trunk of a nearby tree, Jake tucking himself protectively around them, Marceline setting her base aside. The breeze drifted over the lake, carrying the faint scent of peppermint and damp reeds. Above, the stars held steady, their reflections trembling faintly in the water. The world felt wide but not empty, full of quiet corners where kindness and music could wait. Courage's eyes closed, and lashes brushing the grass. Around him, the sounds thinned to the soft pulse of water against stone, the low breathing of friends, the gentle echo of a lullaby. The little dog's tail twitched once, then went still. The moon stood high, patient and bright, watching over them until the morning. And there, on the edge of Ooze Silver Lake, every heart sank gently into sleep, wrapped in calm and the promise of another peaceful dawn. A pale hush lay across the lake when Courage opened his eyes. The moon had slipped toward the horizon, its reflection stretched thin across the glassy surface. Mist hovered just above the reeds, curling like soft ribbons in the cool air. Finn stirred first, yawning as he pushed his hat back. Jake gave a long stretch, paws rippling the water before settling again. Marceline sat cross-legged, tracing the frets of her bass with an absent finger, as if the night's song still hummed there. Bubblegum stood nearby, gathering the picnic cloth with slow, tidy motions. The sky had begun to trade stars for the faintest hint of rose. The hills beyond the Candy Kingdom were painted in a sleepy blur, their shapes waiting for morning to finish them. Finn smiled at the sight, then looked around the group. "Looks like we made it all the way to dawn," he said quietly. "Best kind of adventure, the one you don't notice until it's already a memory." Jake chuckled under his breath. "And we didn't spill the cocoa," he added, settling back onto the moss. Marceline plucked a single note, letting it float over the lake like a farewell. "Sun's coming," she murmured. "Time for promises." Bubblegum knelt beside Courage and brushed a hand gently over his head. "You did well tonight," she said. "You listened, shared, and stayed brave. That's all anyone needed." Courage gave a small, pleased bark, tail wagging once. He felt lighter than when he'd stepped through the portal, as though every song, story, and quiet look had stitched a new steadiness inside him. The friends sat together for a few moments longer, holding the stillness as the sky slowly grew. The water caught the colors first, silver melting into soft peach, then the faintest blue. Finn sighed contentedly. "Let's keep this morning," he said. "Even when we're apart, we'll remember how it felt." Marceline strummed a low chord, a seal over his words. The note rippled out and disappeared into the mist, leaving only calm behind. Courage nestled closer to Jake, eyes half closed again, but this time sleep didn't tug. He was awake, grounded, and quietly sure. He had friends, and their care would travel with him even when the lake was far away. The mist above the lake began to thin, melting into a faint gold that traced the water's edge. Birds stirred in the reeds, offering a few tentative notes to the quiet morning. Finn sat cross-legged on the moss, rubbing his hands together for warmth. "Feels like we should make a promise," he said, his voice still husky from sleep. "Not a heavy one, just something small to keep this night with us." Jake gave a slow nod, stretching his long body until it framed the group like a lazy hug. "I'm in." Mine's to remember how calm feels, even when the day gets noisy. Marceline plucked a muted chord on her bass, the sound low and rich. I promise to play more songs that leave room for silence, she said. Sometimes the space between notes is the whole point. Princess Bubblegum straightened the folded cloth in her lap. I'll keep a spot in the garden just for nights like this, she added. A quiet corner where friends can stop and breathe. Courage looked around at them, ears twitching. A small, steady whine left his throat, not worried, just thoughtful. Finn leaned toward him, smiling. What about you, little buddy? Courage gave a tentative bark, then rested a paw on Jake's tail. The meaning was clear enough. He promised to be gentle with himself, to remember that bravery can live inside calm. Jake grinned, eyes soft. Good one, pal. The sunlight grew a shade warmer, sketching thin lines across the ripples. Bubblegum reached out, brushing Courage's ear with kind fingers. That promise suits you, she said. For a while they sat with those words hanging lightly between them, like paper lanterns strung across an early sky. None of the promises felt heavy. They were as soft as the mist, waiting to lift into daybreak. Marceline strummed a closing note, letting it fade until only the lake's hush remained. The group breathed together, holding the quiet as their first gift of morning. Morning stretched a little farther across the hills, soft gold pushing against the last scraps of mist. The lake caught every change, turning pale pink at its center, silver at its edges. A cool breeze brushed the grass and carried the scent of fresh water toward the Candy Kingdom. Finn rose first, shaking out his cloak. He slung his pack over one shoulder, but didn't rush. He looked around the circle as if memorizing it. We should start moving soon, he said, a voice warm. But let's leave slowly. Jake yawned, an easy ripple running through his long frame. I'm with you, he said, curling protectively once more around Courage before standing. One last stretch, then we walk. Marceline slid her bass onto her back, keeping a hand on the neck so it wouldn't clatter. I'll play us a tiny walking tune, she offered, plucking a quiet chord that drifted over the water. Bubblegum packed the remaining cakes into a small basket, her motions careful, as though each sweet carried a piece of the night's calm. We'll take these for later, she said. A bit of stillness to go. Courage stood, shaking dew from his fur. He looked between them, Finn's steady smile, Jake's relaxed grin, Bubblegum's soft focus, Marceline's easy calm, and felt something firm settle in his chest. He wasn't leaving the quiet behind. It would come with him. Finn crouched, offering a hand. You good, buddy? He asked. Courage placed a paw in Finn's palm, tail wagging once, steady and sure. Jake leaned closer, bumping his nose gently against Courage's side. Adventure or nap, you're covered, he said with a wink. The group turned to the lake one last time. Sunlight tipped its surface, painting streaks of rose and amber across the still water. Their reflections stood side by side, clear and unhurried. Marceline hummed a few notes, low and soothing, letting them drift until the breeze carried them off. That's for the road, she said quietly. Courage drew in a slow breath. The scent of the lake, of sugar from the picnic, of the cool morning grass, all of it folded inside, joining the steady pulse of new confidence he carried. With no need for hurry, they began to gather their things, the soft rustle of baskets and straps, blending with the lake's gentle hush. The sun had climbed a little higher, tinting the lake with strokes of rose and gold. Mist clung only to the far shore now, thin as breath. The friends stood close together, their reflections lingering on the calm surface. Finn crouched beside Courage, brushing a gentle hand over his fur. You're tougher than you think, buddy, he said. Remember this feeling when the world gets noisy. Jake leaned down, draping a long arm lightly around the little dog. And don't forget naps, he added with a grin. Best way to keep that brave heart steady. Bubblegum offered the basket of cakes, wrapped now in soft cloth. A snack for later, she said. Proof that a good night can leave sweetness behind. Marceline shifted her base into place, the strap snug over one shoulder. If you ever hear a song floating over the hill, she told Courage, just follow it. I'll be somewhere nearby. Courage's ears flicked as he looked at each of them, tail wagging slow and sure. He gave a tiny bark, not anxious this time, but a quiet thank you. Finn smiled, tipping his hat against the sunlight. Guess it's time, he said, a voice low. But we don't have to rush the goodbye. They lingered for a moment longer, letting the air hold everything they'd shared. Cocoa and music, stories and promises, the soft space where friendship had grown through the night. The lake caught the memory, tucking it just beneath its gleaming surface. Jake gave Courage one last pat and straightened. All right, team, he said with an easy stretch. Let's head out before breakfast finds us first. The group laughed quietly, their voices gentle, then turned toward the path leading away from the water. Each step was slow, as though the grass itself asked them to leave traces light enough for morning to keep. Courage followed, pausing once to glance back at the lake. The sunlight on the water looked like a smile meant just for him. The path away from the lake curved through soft grass, each blade tipped with dew that sparkled in the newborn sun. The air smelled fresh, a quiet blend of mint from Bubblegum's basket and the cool shimmer of morning water. Finn walked ahead, keeping his steps slow so everyone could linger in the hush. Funny thing, he said, glancing over his shoulder. Sometimes the best part of an adventure is the walk back. Jake padded alongside Courage, stretching just enough to shade the little dog with his long body. Yeah, man. Heading home gives you time to keep the good stuff tucked inside. Bubblegum carried the basket carefully, pausing every now and then to admire the way sunlight caught in the reeds. I think the Candy Kingdom will still be asleep when we get back, she said softly. We'll slip in like quiet stars. Marceline floated a few inches above the path, base slung behind her back. She strummed a short, light phrase, more a greeting to the morning than a song. Dawn's got its own rhythm, she murmured. Feels good to match it. Courage trotted between Jake and Finn, tail sweeping the grass. With each step, a sense of steadiness grew inside him. He remembered the stories, the music, the way every friend had looked at him with trust. The nervous flutter that had once lived in his chest was calm now, replaced by a warm pulse of belonging. They passed a patch of wildflowers, their petals half open to the light. Bubblegum bent to brush one with her fingertips. Even the smallest things wait for the right moment to open, she said. Finn grinned. Kinda like us. Jake gave a soft chuckle. Except we don't smell as nice as flowers. The laughter that followed was low and easy, drifting over the meadow without disturbing the morning birds. Courage's ears perked at the sound. It felt like music meant just for him. The hills ahead lifted gently, painted with a thin wash of gold. Courage paused, taking in the view. The road didn't feel big or scary anymore, just another piece of the quiet adventure they'd built together. Jake gave him a nudge with his nose. Come on, pup. Let's see where the sunshine takes us. Courage wagged once, steady and sure, then followed, leaving little paw prints that shone briefly before the breeze smoothed them away. The path rose slowly, curling toward a low hill that caught the first full sweep of sunlight. Dew glimmered on the grass, tiny mirrors sending sparks into the air. The lake behind them lay still and silver, a quiet witness to all they had shared. Finn reached the crest first and turned, shading his eyes with one hand. Look, he said softly. From here the whole valley opened. Candy Kingdom towers glowing faint pink, meadows rolling toward the horizon, and far beyond the familiar lines of Nowhere's Plain. Jake came up beside him, tail looping lazily. "Nice view," he murmured. "Kinda feels like the world saying good morning back." Bubblegum set the basket down, letting the cloth spill open, so the leftover cakes caught the sun. "We should leave a little," she said. "A thank you for the night." She placed one cake on a flat stone, a quiet gift for whoever wandered here next. Marceline hovered just above the grass, her bass resting easy against her shoulder. She played a tiny chord just enough to send a shimmer through the morning air. "That's our signature," she said with a smile. "A promise, stitched into daylight." Courage reached the top and sat with the others. The breeze ruffled his ears, carrying scents of sugar, damp earth, and the calm of friends close by. He looked at the valley, then back at the group, tail sweeping once in quiet certainty. Finn crouched, rubbing Courage's back. "Wherever you go from here," he said gently, "you're not stepping alone." Jake added, "And if things get loud, remember this hill and that nap promise." Bubblegum offered a small smile. "You've earned the right to feel steady," she said. Marceline leaned in, voice soft as a chord fading into silence. "You're part of our song now." Courage breathed out slowly, his heart matching the rhythm of the morning. The light around them grew warmer, wrapping every promise in gold. Together they watched as the last star slipped away, leaving only a calm blue sky. One by one they turned toward the trail that would carry them on. Courage took a single step forward, steady and sure, then glanced back at the hill, not to cling, but to honor what it had given him. The sun rose fully, touching his fur with gentle warmth. With friends by his side and quiet courage inside, he walked toward the new day, leaving behind paw prints made of calm and belonging. Take a slow breath in and let it slip gently out. You've walked through stories, music, and moonlight with Courage and his new friends, and now the sun has risen, steady and kind. As you settle into your own quiet, carry the same calm they found on the hill. Let your shoulders loosen, your thoughts grow light, and your heartbeat find an easy rhythm. Whether you're drifting into sleep or greeting the day, remember, there's always a gentle place waiting inside you, steady, warm, and brave. Good night or good morning, dear listener. May your dreams be peaceful and your steps tomorrow be soft and sure.